Many have focused on different aspects. For instance, only 2 countries so far have their own national action plan. That's Indonesia and the Philippines. Timor-Leste, I think, has come up with its own action plan. But the rest of the member states focus on aspects such as peacekeeping, participation in countering violent extremism, but no cohesive strategy to include women in policy formulation and decision making. So in this morning's session, we are lucky to have a distinguished panel of experts who will help us critically examine the evolving roles of women in peace and security within Muslim majority and Muslim minority groups. And that will address both the emerging developments and persistent challenges faced by women, particularly women in conflict areas. It is now my privilege to introduce to you this remarkable panel of experts and specialists on women, peace, and security who have tirelessly advocated for the effective participation of women in policy formulation, in decision-making, whether in peace building or conflict resolution. First member of our panel of discussants this morning is someone whom all of you know, Dwi Rubianti Khalifa, the Secretary General of the Asian Muslim Network, AMAN. She was born and raised in Indonesia, and as you very well know, is the current Secretary General of AMAN, which focuses on strengthening leadership of grassroots interfaith women, consolidating progressive voices to advocate the rights of minority groups. She earned her master's degree on health and social science at the Mahidol University in Thailand. While she is a part of AMAN Indonesia, she spearheaded and initiated the Women's School for Peace, a community learning peace advocate for interfaith, mothers, and other women that are currently spreading in 43 communities throughout Indonesia. Ruby, can you join us on stage? Another equally distinguished panelist is Assistant Professor Dr. Amporn Marden. Amporn is an anthropologist at the Thammasat University in Thailand, where she also teaches cultural studies. She obtained her PhD in anthropology at Goethe University in Frankfurt, specializing on gender piety of Muslim women. She works both as an activist and an academic in cross-disciplinary approaches, comparative religion study, gender anthropology, and peace mediation. Dr. Amporn, can you join us on stage? Through the wonders of technology, we shall also be joined by another equally dynamic woman, Maria Victoria, or fondly called Mavic Cabrera Ballesa. She is the founder and CEO of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, which is an international coalition of women's rights organizations and civil society groups that focus on peace building, conflict prevention, sustaining peace, and promoting women's rights and gender equality. Incidentally, MAVIC initiated the Philippine National Action Plan in its first iteration with the UN Security Council resolution on WPS. She has consistently provided technical support in the 1325 National Action Plan in the Philippines and in other countries all over the world. MAVIC has pioneered the localization of the 1325 resolution that has been implemented in 15 countries so far. MAVIC, can we see you on Zoom? And fourth, fingers crossed, is another dynamic woman, Hamsatu Alamin. We hope we could get her to join us, but there has some technological problems, I understand. So, Hamsatun Alamin is the founder and executive director of Al Alamin Foundation for Peace and Development. She is an educator, freelance writer, gender activist, and human rights defender. For our session today, I'll be asking each of our discussants to give their insights from their personal experiences working on the promotion of women, peace, and security agenda in their respective jurisdictions. May I call on Mavic if you're available?
Konfirmasi, Ibu Mavik kalau sudah siap. Selamat malam di sana, Ibu Mavik. Silahkan, waktunya dipersilahkan. Masih mute, Ibu Mavik.
Can you hear me? Hello? Is there audio? I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
Ibu Mavik masih mute.
Yes.
Masih mute.
I'm not muted. I'm not muted. I'm not muted. Okay, can you hear me well now?
Apakah suara?
Okay, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I congratulate the organizers, including especially AMAN Indonesia, for convening us in this very important conversation. As our esteemed moderator has already mentioned, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, and I've worked on women, peace, and security in synergy with a relatively new set of resolutions on youth, peace, and security for over a decade in more than 30 countries. And in the United Nations, we engage and collaborate with faith leaders worldwide in advocacy and programming on this work. And this is the context that informs my presentation today, wherein I will highlight the efforts of the United Nations on the links between peace and security, human rights, and religion. And I must say, I have clarified with Ruby when she sent me an invitation that I'm not an expert on religion, but I will share highlights of the discussions in the United Nations in relation to the link between religion, women, peace, and security, and human rights and gender equality. So let me start by sharing that in June 2023 of this year, the UN Security Council met to discuss the values of human fraternity in promoting and sustaining peace. The meeting was convened by the United Arab Emirates under its presidency of the Security Council that month. And the meeting of the Security Council was built on the 2019 declaration entitled Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together, co-authored by His Holiness Pope Francis and His Eminence, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar Ahmed Al-Tayeb. The declaration is regarded as a very important model for compassion and human solidarity, and it urges religious and political leaders to end wars, conflicts, and environmental degradation. It also calls on people of faith to recognize and respect one another and join hands and work together for the good of humanity. At the same meeting, Secretary Antonio Guterres said that hatred is an all too common denominator to the onset of escalation of conflict. And around the world, we are witnessing a groundswell of xenophobia, racism and intolerance, violent misogyny, anti-Muslim hatred, virulent anti-Semitism, and attacks on minority Christian communities. Another important milestone leaders and multi-religious collaborative efforts in addressing conflict-related sexual violence and countering the stigmatization of survivors of such crimes. Another important point in the work of the UN on this issue happened in August 2019, when it marked the first ever International Day commemorating the victims of acts, commemorating the victims of acts of violence based on religion and belief. The day was created in response to increasing attacks against individuals and groups targeted simply because of their
Para
belief.
kelompok dan individu.
During that commemoration, Secretary Guterres declared that the day was an opportunity to reaffirm support for the victims of violence based on religion and belief, and adding that we demonstrate the support by doing all in our power to prevent such attacks and demanding that those responsible are held accountable. He pointed out that all major world religions espouse tolerance and peaceful coexistence and urge resistance to and rejection of those who falsely and maliciously invoke religion to build misconceptions, fuel divisions, and spread fear and hatred, noting that there is richness and strength in diversity, which is never a threat. Also during that day, Mr. Guterres drew attention to two new initiatives in the UN that are aimed to overcome the threat of violence based on religion and belief. And those are the UN strategy and plan of action to safeguard religious sites. I want to point out also the mandate that created the position of the Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief. And this is an independent expert appointed by the United Nations Human Rights Council. The mandate was also endorsed by the Economic and Social Council and welcomed by the General Assembly, which demonstrate the strong support for this issue. And the Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion and belief has the responsibility to first promote the adoption of measures at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure promotion and protection of the right to freedom of religion or belief. Second, identify existing and emerging obstacles to the enjoyment of the right to freedom of religion or belief and present recommendations on ways and means to overcome such obstacles. Third, it will continue efforts to examine incidents and governmental actions that are incompatible with the provisions of the Declaration on the Elimination of All Forms of Intolerance and Discrimination based on religion and or belief, and to recommend remedial measures as appropriate. And finally, this is important to our discussion today, to continue to apply a gender perspective through identifying gender-specific abuses in the reporting process, including information collection and recommendations. The current special rapporteur is Nazila Ganea, a professor of international human rights law at the University of Oxford. And yet another essential document is the Barcelona Declaration on the role of religion in the promotion of a culture of peace, adopted in 1994 in a meeting organized by UNESCO. The declaration recognized that religion is important in human life. It declared that religions have contributed to the peace of the world, but they have also led to division, hatred, and war. And it recognized that religious people have too often betrayed the high ideals they themselves have preached. The declaration committed that they would distinguish fanaticism from religious zeal. They would disown killing in the name of religion, and they would promote dialogue and harmony between and within religions, recognizing and respecting the search for truth and wisdom that is outside their religion. So as you would know, the role of religion is highly recognized and supported by the United Nations and individual member states. But of course, most of these will just remain words if women's rights organizations and other civil society groups will not push for their implementation on the ground. So I want to end by quoting Dag Hammarskjöld, a Swedish diplomat who served as the second Secretary General of the United Nations from 1953 to 1961. He said, "The United Nations stands outside and necessarily outside all confessions, but it is nevertheless an instrument of faith. As such, it is inspired by what unites and not by what divides the great religions of the world." Thank you and good morning, everyone.
Check. Thank you, Mavic. I know it's 10 o'clock your time. Thank you for sharing the acknowledgement, awareness that the religious sector ought to be and should be critical partners in pushing for sustainable peace in any community. And it would also be a great partner for pushing the women peace and security agenda in any community, whether it's in Southeast Asia, in Middle East and North Africa. Now, may I call on another distinguished woman, human rights advocate, an academic, to share her insights on the challenges and possible approaches that women NGOs, women CSOs can engage or use to push for the women peace and security agenda in the respective communities. Dr. Ampon.
Thank you very much, Salma. And good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you once again for inviting me to be part of the learner and also sharing my experience here in AMAN Assembly 2023. Actually, this is a learning and sharing platform. I know you all are the experts working in your own area, and you know very well about women, peace, and security. Even it is the first time for you all. Some of you may just hear now about what is women, peace, and security is, but this is a time that you already spend with the community, working and fighting for equality in any kind, especially from the gender perspective. So let me start by sharing from what Salma and Mawik mentioned about why women, peace, and security is highlighted for this morning section. And it is already established, I mean, in terms of understanding, making a kind of mechanism using as a policy, including as an action, or implemented as national action plan for each state. As you know, the context of Southeast Asia may be specified very crucially for this platform. And we learn from friends in Africa, South Asia, the Middle East, in any other continents as well. So to bring you into my place, I would like to show a map of Thailand in general. Please go to the next slide. You will see the map of Thailand, which is highlighted in red. And we are neighbors of different countries. Those two countries that we learn why WPS are very important. I mean, WPS is one of the agenda to promote peace and security from gender perspective and eradicate gender-based violence. And it becomes an agenda of internationally, which is implemented by United Nations Security through Resolution 1325. So you get familiar more why it is, or what does it mean, right? And the countries that Thai friends learn very closely are the Philippines and Indonesia. So we already heard from Mawik, even though she's now in the US. But of course, we have friends who always provide some knowledge and sharing the experience, how to bring the concept of women, peace, and security into the local scenario, local context, and local knowledge. So the next slide would be a map of an area of conflict, I mean the armed conflict, which is taken place in the south of Thailand. That area are Pattani, Yala, and Narathiwat province, including four districts in Songkhla. So this is a weird term for you, I know. And this is a conflict zone where you may see some friends or 12 delegates from Thailand who come for this forum, and you may have chance to share the experience from some of them already. So friends in Pattani, we call in short Pattani, living under or within the conflict, armed conflict for about 20 years. This is 2 decades. And the implementation of women, peace, and security is already 23, right? For this chart is just to share with you that the program on women, peace, and security is a guideline. You may see WPS as a guideline in Thailand. We do not yet have the program that the government comply directly to use the agenda. But there are some other mechanisms that the government promotes, and we are part of ASEAN member state, right? So we were pushed, the Thai government were pushed by the surrounding countries to be the leaders as well in ASEAN and to concern. This is a very important mechanism that you can not only facilitate but also build up from the community to learn why it is important and how to work within the context that we get used to. The next slide would show you how it is important, why we want to talk about women, peace, and security with the context where Muslim is the majority population in the Deep South. And not only we are Muslim, but also people here, the majority of them are the Malay ethnic minority as a whole if we compare in the whole country. But the Malay Muslims, of course, they are the majority of people. But within these 3 provinces and 4 districts, the Buddhist friends, Christian, and different other faiths, they are minority within the minority, right? So this is a more complicated background of the area of conflict. So I show up some pictures which you may realize she's the former human rights commissioner of the country. She lost her husband. It means disappear from the context where he's the lawyer who who spent a lot of effort to assist those who face with unjust in the context of Southern Thailand violence, Angkan Anilat Paijit. And different other two pictures show you the context how the military work in the community. They move around the BANDA Islamic school and they try to educate the young generation why they have to go there. It is unwelcome scenarios in the context. And it is informal way for the military to communicate with influencers, especially with religious leaders, why they have to intervene within the security mission. So this is the intervention from the military force or from the government. The next slide would show you the context of Southeast Asia when we, about 3, 4, 5 years back, we talk a lot about women, peace and security. When the government were again encouraged by ASEAN to implement national action plan. But when you don't agree or have WPS yet as a policy of the central government, it's hard to do some action from the policy or top level. But on the ground, people talk a lot about equality, rights to practice, and justice, right? Even the term WPS came about 6, 7 years, but we work on this scheme, on this issue, and promote peace within the society for long. So the term, even though it's very technique, but in reality or in practice, we work on that. In the sense that we concern why WPS is still important to implement by that term, because it is a structure that we need to comply. We need to be as a part of the structure in our society, because it's an accountability of the government. It is an issue that the people are very concerned. So we welcome the resource person from not only in Southeast Asia. You may see some pictures of friends who are friends from South Asia, from America, and Ruby there. The picture of Ruby, picture of Kak Shadia Marhaban, and different others who are our trainers, our resource person, including Professor Miriam. She's the one of the important figure from the Philippines who always support us. The next slide will show you different other scenario which I very intend to bring the picture of Fatima. She's in our conference. She's part of our Thai delegate. She's the one who is very active on the ground and nationally. She showed the card or the paper or the flyer to mention we need peace zone, right? Safety zone, which is promoted before the education of WPS longer than 10 years. So this is the way that female and many other activists involved in peace process. Next slide will show you another concern that I try to make more understanding and share with you because of gender segregation, which is very strongly strongly highlighted in the context of Southern Thailand. Whether we are more matrilineal society, but the idea of patriarchal systems constructed, and it's divided between men and women's role, and women tend to be accounted as the victims, and peacemaker, you were pushed by the context, economic and social context, while male are suspicious as whether you are the person who engaged with separatists. That's the reason women were put at the front line to be the peacemaker, to work for their own community, for their own family. The second point would be women as the citizen. Women and the citizen within the armed conflict, they also ask and demand to be protected. Not only being protected from violent conflict, but the issues of gender and sexual-based violence are always neglected within this context. So we hear so many voices of women from Patani region to call for their own rights in this regard. The last point would be the role of religious leaders. You are not only the people who lead the Friday prayers or in the ritual, right? But you are the person who can take a big role as the peace builder. And we also have the dialogue from the workshop that Ruby and friends, Azrina, different other friends from Sister in Islam, from Indonesia, Kupis, expert, came to Thailand. We went to Bangkok and Chiang Mai to work together and learn Mubadala. Of course, Mubadala is a new methodology for varieties of people in in Thailand and also in Bangkok, in Chiang Mai. But for the leaders, I mean, religious leader is not new. I talked a little bit yesterday in a forum. Methodology of Mubadala is not new. We learned from Professor Fakihuddin, Dr. Noor, and they are our guru, including different other that I hardly mentioned their names within this forum. They provide certain knowledge, and that knowledge are friendly not only for the community within the conflict zone, but also friendly to Muslim majority area, how to deal with the issues of gender imbalance, gender inequality within Islamic perspective, and how to work together with friends who come from different belief systems. So this is an issue that we try to analyze and we would like to see and move forward. I think I would stop here. There are some other pictures and other points that I'd like to talk later, but I'd like to hear from our sister, Ruby, and also from all of you. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Dr. Amporn. We surely learned a lot from what you've experienced and actually implemented in, not only in Thailand, but in the neighboring communities, right? Thailand is in the midst of all areas that have conflict. So now let me turn to our favorite person in this conference, Ruby. Ruby and Amporn both have been working with us to promote the Regional Plan of Action in Southeast Asia. And in doing so, Ruby especially may have encountered challenges in promoting women's rights and participation in policy formulation, especially involving the security sector. So Ruby, can you share us your insights? The floor is yours.
Yes, love and frustration. That's the feeling that I can share to you throughout almost 17 years working in the women, peace and security, and particularly when we work closely with the government. I don't hate my government. I can cope with so many difficulties there, but there are so many factors that influencing why the women, peace and security becomes so much sensitive in the one sense, but the other providing a lot of huge space for us to bring together different actors and also including the way we engage with the government. Regarding with the women, peace and security, AMAN Indonesia had created a special lecture about women, peace and security. I make a lecturing about women, peace and security on the YouTube. You can take a look, what does it look like? And we documented a lot relating with the story of women created peace or transform the community through the global campaign called She Builds Peace, and we contribute to She Builds Peace Indonesia. You can get a lot of video recording there, and some of the women at the grassroots level invited here, so then you can easily to get to know what exactly they are doing. Go back to the challenge that we've been doing. Indonesia adopted the resolution 1325 on women, peace and security in 2014. Through presidential decree number 18, year 2014, on the protection and empowerment of women and children in the social conflict. We are very lucky at the national level. We have a national law on the handling social conflict, number 7, 2012. So then that actually able to make Indonesia smoothly adopted the resolution 1325 on the women, peace and security. The story of the adoption of the women, peace and security in Indonesia, Aman also documented through the book. You can go to our website and download the book. The reason why we need to create the book is because from one generation to other generation, they should know the history of the adoption of women, peace and security in Indonesia. So then they know how it looked, what was the contentious issues, why it is so difficult for Indonesia to adopt the women, peace and security resolution. Number one, we felt at that time that it's not necessary for Indonesia because Indonesia are not considered as the conflict zone. So then women, peace and security not relevant for that context. The other, I think the challenge was also the term of security itself is so much related to territorial, is so much attached to the national defense concept. So we brought and challenged the government to think beyond the national defense. Is more on the human security and particularly dealing with the women security. So when it is adopted, it was because of the huge movement coming from civil society across Indonesia. I think many of them are here. So we started 2007 on dealing with the issue, negotiating with the government, consolidating civil society, doing a lot of consultation from Aceh to Papua to be aware that using the women, peace and security framework can help civil society to go beyond their own micro work. Is really bringing us into the connection among actors, including very lately the connection, of course, among religious actors. However, with that, I can say that in Indonesia context, political will is quite high. Because when civil society, and particularly the women group, able to negotiate with the government, then the government able to see that this is opportunity for Indonesia to strengthen the women, peace and security at internal level, but at the same time, we push Indonesia to play active role outside the country. Because Indonesia already great in some of the arena relating with democracy, Islam, and why not? Why we are silent? We need to speak out and then reaching out other country. Political will in terms of formulation was so high, including during our assistance through the local government and consolidating civil society there. However, the knowledge is another gap among us. Civil society, I think, much more master in terms of women, peace and security. I was considered as a newcomer in 2011. When I think big consultation happened in Jakarta with 100 civil society representing the women group from Aceh to Papua was under the very stagnation on negotiation for women, peace and security, and we shifted our role, and then AMAN engaged inside to strengthen the group already. The big challenge for us currently is the implementation. You can go back to your own country and check. Many good policies are not necessarily come up with a good implementation. It's a difficult. That's why civil society need to always alert and wake up that we have our role in ensuring that the government implementing any regulation. And in the context of government, the knowledge is really obstacle for us, not just a gap, but obstacle because very limited government officer understanding about the framework, and also very few among of them that really understand the situation of women in the context of conflict. Other thing is the bureaucracy. I can share you, I think many of you working with the bureaucracy is always a challenge to ensure that the culture of bureaucracy is not easy. For us as civil society, enjoying freedom when we're working anywhere, But when you work with the bureaucracy, you really need to understand there's certain culture, there's certain behavior, and there's certain a pattern that we really need to adjust throughout, the process of negotiation. Quick rotation among government is very often. Indonesia in particularly, you may see like 3 months, you can have like the chief of the department, and after 3 months, then they will have a new person. Then you have to start from zero. Then again, you have to socialize and talk to that person. I want to tackle on the issue of gender equality and women, peace and security. The framework is very easy right now to be adopted and implemented by government. But I think what are lacking is how we ensure through the implementation of National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security that actually we addressing gender equality. That is very important, because when if that's not the case, you will see only like a ritual happening where forum like this occupied by maybe 50% of women, talking about the women leadership, but maybe not really addressing the gender equality, the inequality in our society that's still rooted there and need to be addressed. Therefore, we are very lucky in Indonesia with the birth of the Indonesia Women Ulama Congress. I appreciate with the founder here, Kiai Fakihuddin Abdul Qadir Jailani here, and Ibu Nur Rafi'ah and some other more, that brought me into more, innovative way how to bring the women, peace and security agenda, not only convincing the government to tackle the difficult issues surrounding gender with the new lens that offered by KUPI, the Indonesia Women Ulama Congress, providing the women-friendly interpretation of the religion. And they're already very good in terms of formulating, consolidating a lot of knowledge on that into the methodology book, and also creating, big gathering under Congress, ensuring people understand the new deconstruction of knowledge on the Islamic study by putting women knowledge and experience as the baseline for religious interpretation. Aside, we also appreciate the framework of human rights and also the national policy, as long as it is compatible with the human rights framework. So the birth of KUPI really provided a very new way how we could actually address the women, the gender inequality. Because now suddenly the Women, Peace and Security group need to be connected with another larger group that consists of the women cleric, the women ulama, that also addressing very contentious issues relating with preventing child marriage, for example, stop sexual violence, preventing the female genital cutting and wounding, and many more. They're releasing specific fatwa in addressing this, not only just the fatwa, but the way you understand why the fatwa saying like that, why Islamic knowledge, why Islamic opinion should go on the side of the women. Could be provide argumentation, and that is very easy for us to understand and using it back. So some of you already joining with the KUPI, and hopefully we can connect it in the future. I hope with that we can slowly engage religious actors into the agenda of women, peace and security. So gender equality and women, peace and security, they are not separated. They are intersection. They have to be there. So then we will see a situation of women, peace and security better. Go back to you, sorry.
Thank you, Ruby. Best practices, as what Ruby has recounted, energizing and activating the Muslim religious sector, specifically the women ulama, the alimat, and engaging them to push for gender-sensitive policies, even within the religious hierarchy. Now, while we wait for Hamza to, we can probably start and open the forum for questions from the audience. While we're waiting for them to, to think about their questions, I have one question to ask. When we were pushing for the regional plan of action on women, peace, and security, the first finding was that there were low levels of awareness across the region on the women, peace, and security agenda. How do you think should local women's groups, women CSOs, counter this low level of awareness? Because how to engage the community becomes difficult if they're not aware that women's participation should not only be limited in conflict situations, because that's the automatic reaction. If it's WPS, it's only for conflict situation, which is wrong. So how do we counter this in your experience, Dr. Ampar?
Thank you, Salma. It's quite challenging to answer this question because, you know, Salma asked in the context of the region, right? So I just would like to narrow down from the experience we work in Thailand context. Of course, the government from central part of Thailand, Bangkok government, point the issues of women, peace, and security as an issue within the conflict zone. So the image of WPS is there in conflict arena. But actually, when we learn from different other countries, including the philosophy of women, peace, and security agenda, which is not implemented or adopted in conflict area only. So we know that the term conflict is really disturb people when you hear about conflict, or we don't want to deal with it. But actually conflict is not such a negative idea. We can see how far conflict can be solved within a family, among the partners, among friends, when we try to listen carefully, when we want to step into their shoes and try to understand why they need to act as such in a conflict, in a violent format. And then we try to start from that kind of simple way to understand living reality, why people are afraid of working in the area of conflict resolution, because it brings into the idea of national defense, right? So about human security need to be promoted. And we know that conflict can be happen in Bangkok. It's not only during demonstration, but also in your own community, in our houses. But how to solve the conflict is the thing that we need to highlight more. And then we talk to different other civil society organizations, friends or academics, and people who live in the community, and they don't want to leave their own culture. So we promote, you have that kind of value already in your own culture, in your own community. It's not new. It's the thing that you live within, right? You love peace, you don't want to quarrel each other. You don't want to fight each other. You need something settled. You need a settled life. So why don't we talk more how to find that kind of settled life, respect each other. Either you are different gender, different religion, different cultures. But you can show and you can share your culture. And by this kind of format or framework, we talk to people who have capacity. I mean, either you are the government or you are military. We start to talk the security force, security officer, from the low-ranking officer until the people who are on the table of peace negotiation. They agree. But in terms of implementing, it is very difficult. And in that sense, we need to go back to make people feel familiar to talk about resolution from their own culture, from their own understanding. So getting back to the question which Salma asking about how to work in the non-conflict area. I think we back to the government. This is the accountability, the mandate, to work with different areas. And in different area, we do not need to start from zero. We can start from what the civil society, from different other groups already have been done for long, and we learn. We can start from the research or very common collective understanding, and then we share in among the representatives from the communities who are within the conflict zone and people who live outside the violent conflict zone. And we know that that kind of value are common. We have collective values. We want to see the future of our generation and new generation. And then we need to work hard to negotiate with the government. You have to work outside of this conflict area. And you can learn from our neighboring countries. Or if you don't want to learn from starting here in Southeast Asia, you can learn from the US. You can learn from the European countries. There are quite so many interesting models that we can adopt. So that's from, yeah.
Mavic, perhaps you can give your perspective.
Yes, thank you, Salma. As Ruby pointed out, the main challenge now, not only in Indonesia or not only in Southeast Asia, is implementation. And there is now a robust set of framework with the 10 resolutions. And we actually tell the Security Council here in New York that, you know what, the local peace builders we work with, the women who live and, you know, through the conflicts, generation by generation, already have resolution fatigue. What they want to see is how these resolutions will make a difference, not only in policies, but especially in the lives of women and girls. They want to see transformative and positive difference in their lives using this robust set of international law. So in the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, entered into a partnership with UN Women Indonesia, which also represents the UN Women entity in the ASEAN, of working with the media. So we have a Media and Women Peace and Security project, and there's, interestingly, 23 years on, the knowledge and understanding of the women peace and security agenda is still very limited among 1325 nerds like us, among some of the people who happen to attend our workshops and conferences like this, but we don't make up the majority. We're actually still the minority. So information, understanding of the women peace and security agenda by the broader public and the government itself is very important. And there's no better partner in broadening awareness and pushing for greater accountability on this other than media. And that includes the whole spectrum of media practitioners, from you know, those who report and write for newspapers and other print media, television, who broadcast on television and radio, but also those who produce online content. And as you know, social media is equally, if not sometimes more powerful than the more established media. So prior to the adoption of the Regional Plan of Action of ASEAN, we've worked with we've worked with journalists in Southeast Asia on this project, and it is ongoing. And in fact, we have a media competition on women, peace, and security, and the first award ceremony will be held during the anniversary of Resolution 1325. And this project is also replicated in different parts of the world. So media is, as like religion, is a double-edged sword, but it can work our partnership with them can be to our benefit if they understand where we are coming from when we speak about women, peace, and security. And I always highlight in synergy with the youth, peace, and security agenda. And second, in addition to partnership with media, localization is critically important. The challenge with most national action plans is that they have been developed by the central government or by the national government. And if there are civil society who are able to participate, those are mostly the ones based in the capital and not the ones based in conflict affected areas. And also the government representatives who attend these meetings or workshops on the national action plans are, again, the representatives of the national government, but you don't see mayors, you don't see municipal councilors, you don't see indigenous leaders, you don't see ethnic leaders, minority leaders in those discussions and decision-making on the national action plan. So ownership and participation can only be guaranteed by comprehensive localization program. So that localization and partnership with the media are the answer to broadening awareness and generating public support for the women, peace, and security agenda. Thank you.
So 2 tips from Mavic: engaging the media to push for the WPS agenda, and localization, because if you don't reflect the issues and priorities of the communities, no amount of promotion of the WPS agenda will gain traction. Ruby, can we hear your perspective?
Since some of you may be very new with the Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, there are 4 important pillars under the women, peace, and security. Number 1 is prevention. So why it is very relevant in any context of a country, because there are 2 important agendas when we talk about prevention. 1, prevention from conflict, right? We're not doing prevention when we do conflict, when we have conflict. So we have to do prevention before conflict occur. That is the best scenario. And number 2 is prevent from reoccurrence of the conflict, like Aceh case. Aceh case in some part of Indonesia really have to work a lot on the prevention from reoccurrence. And this agenda attached so much with agenda on transitional justice. And in agenda of transitional justice, the government required to really pay attention and provide compensation and a long-term and comprehensive support for the victim of sexual gender-based violence during the conflict. And then we have to check if there is no specific intervention or there is no long-term, they may have a lot of residue or grievances that in the future very possible to lead to conflict. Other important in the agenda of transitional justice is about ending impunity. We want to see that perpetrator of the conflict is actually being, put on trial and then got punishment and all of that. So then we know that a state doing justice for that. Other important also seeing that reform happen inside the country. Reform in terms of law enforcement is so much crucial in the situation where transition to a sustainable peace. The pillar number 2 is protection. And the idea of protection, friends, is not only protection from the victim of gender-based violence, but protection from us, protection our life too. The women human rights defenders, the women peace builders, they are around. They are everywhere. They are always at the front line of doing a lot of work on the peace building. They are the people that always committed and loyal for the agenda of women, peace and security, and they need protection. They need protection from any violence that could be possibly attacked to the women human rights defenders or women peace builders. Other agenda on participation is participation relating with the conflict resolution, but also participation relating with the politics. Why politics important? Because there are so many women agenda decided by politicians, and we need to care about it. We need to pay attention and step into the process of how election have to be fairness, and the women take into a very active participation into the election. In my work, I don't recommend we do like ignore election. Election is so important, and Indonesia will have election the next year. That is the time for civil society, including women movement, to really entrance into the process of election, providing education to people, engaging into monitoring, so then you will get better. I know that this is very frustration because our system and ecosystem is already built unfair. Therefore, from Father Thomas was born until now, I think Father Thomas still listening, a lot of injustice in there, because the structure of the global and the national is really maintained by those people that committed not doing justice and other more. So, but we need still to fight, right? Because otherwise it's going to be very worse. And the last one is about rehabilitation and recovery. That is teaching us a lot. There are a lot of actors here. Not only just recovery for the victim, but also recovery for the society. I think the global study of the implementation 1325 done by Radhika Kumaraswamy recommended very strongly for the countries that experienced conflict before doing communal healing. This is the part that actually lacking and not many countries do, because the communal healing means that the healing for all, not only for children, not only for those who actually experience direct violence, but the people that they are witnessing, they are in the conflict, they are also having, problem. Therefore, why in the several conflict zone, you will see after the conflict, the rise of domestic violence there, the rise of the gender-based violence there, because people still holding people still holding the perception and also something unconsciousness about the violence that can be possible transfer into different form of violence. Recovery with the women, peace and security currently expanded into tackling the big issue in Indonesia on radicalism. We have more than 1,000 people went to Syria to join with ISIS, and they have to come back to our country, and they need to come back to the society, and society fear about their present. They fear of being radicalized, they fear of there will be new radicalization happen, and then what happened if they fear? They rejected this family. They don't want. And along with that, the government only have like top-down for the and client-based approach in dealing with social reintegration. It's so much on preparing that side, the client side, the people joining with ISIS before, but nothing to do with the rest of the society that need to be, educated how to live coexistence with that. So AMAN apply reflective structure dialogue. You will hear in the parallel session, there is a very extraordinary women, Ibu Devi from Depok City, together with Ibu Dina. Can you stand up? I want to promote you. She did a great job on the social reintegration using dialogue and our facilitation with the rest of the people there, including the local authority, religious leader, the youth group, the women group. the victim, and many more, approaching them to understand why you are fear and what is the possibility that we can live together. So through that, the social reintegration, I think the first in Indonesia, been successful in Depok City with the work of many organizations. I have to recognize the working group on women and peace, the working group on the women and preventing violent extremism, that very much putting the effort together with using the tool of peace building called reflective structure dialogue that introduced by AMAN Indonesia. So that is the case, friends. The women, peace and security can be turn up with a different face when it comes to the armed conflict, like certain country, but can be, different face, like in Indonesia, that we don't experience in the certain level open conflict, but that we still have a conflict in Papua that need to work on in the future.
We can entertain a couple of questions from the floor. Yes, please. The lady over there. Yes, the one.
Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you all the panelists and distinguished guests. My name is Umunisa from Al-Wasliyah. I have a questions, and this discussions today is very important. Well, in the situations of conflicts and displacements, we have one issue, one specific issue that is on the rise right now, the issue of child marriage. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this issue has been on the rise, and we have report from UNFPA telling that situation in displacement situation like in Syria situations and some other displacement has highlight this is the real issue that need to be addressed. So just wondering your perspective about it or your thoughts, and what can we do as Indonesian community or AMAN to address this problem. Thank you so much.
We'll take two more questions, and then we'll have the panel respond. Yes, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dahlia. I am from UIN Ar-Raniry. I interest with what you are talking about the human rights and the conflict in many countries in this world. I have so many attention to my country in Indonesia, especially Aceh. You know that Aceh is one of conflict area since many years ago, and maybe this time we live in peace and no conflict anymore. But in past time, before tsunami, we always fear and we cannot go anywhere because the situation of Aceh is very, very difficult. Yeah? Maybe it is not like a war, but it is a fighting between Aceh and separate communities in Aceh. We say Gerakan Aceh Merdeka. Yeah, I don't know if AMAN know about it or not. But the problem now, I have an attention that our government just give set us attention for a conflict victim, like a woman who has lost their husband because killed in conflict, but no solution about their future life, you know. We know they have kids, orphan, or maybe we need more attention. Is there a solution from AMAN about Aceh conflict, maybe? And the other one is, I have another attention to Muslim in Rohingya. Yeah, many months ago, I visited a camp. There are refugees from Rohingya, and I don't know where they come from Rohingya, maybe in a beach near Ujung Bate, Aceh. And Dinas Sosial handle them. I don't know if they are still there or not. But is there attention from AMAN to take care of them? Because I think Philippines, yeah? Rohingya in Filipina, right? Yeah. The government of Filipina, I don't know if they care or not. So what is the solution about it? Thank you. And jazakumullah khairan katsiran. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And the third question, the gentleman in front.
Terima kasih. Perkenalkan, nama saya Agustina, saya dari organisasi Serikat Inong Aceh. Saya langsung saja pada narasumber Ibu yang dari Thailand. Saya ingin bertanya bagaimana dengan gerakan perempuan di sana, seperti apa? Kemudian yang kedua, bagaimana transformasi informasi terkait dengan konflik kepada generasi muda hari ini? Ini terkait juga dengan bagaimana kita sebagai perempuan agen perdamaian. Itu saja mungkin, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. And finally, the gentleman in front. Thank you for your patience.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is Muhammad Asraf Ali from India. I have a lots of questions, but I don't know how convert it into in one question.
Just one.
Thank you for great lady sisters over there, the fighters, real fighters. There's number of questions like what Quran says, what Hadith says, role of religious leader, compliance of Sharia law, women empowerment, space for women, practice and action. These are my concern. My question is, if the 50% population in the world leading by the women, where is their share? Number one. Number two is, how the policies, plan of action, which like Indonesia have plan of action for the women and their empowerment, they are sharing, how convert it into action? Means the policy, practice and action. And the representation of women in politics. See, in our country, in India, recently, one month back, our parliament have passed the resolution of women participation in politics, in parliamentary, basically, up to 30%. But still we are in doubt what will be the action and practices. So my question, again, the role of women in politics. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
sorry, one more question. Sorry. The reunification, as Sister Ruby says, those women are converted into the some radicalization group. They came back in Indonesia. So how the community reunified all of them? Is it there any policies or any blocks? It is very big question for those who came back. Thank you.
okay. We only have 3 minutes for all of you to answer the question. Okay. The first question is on child marriage.
Okay, probably I will join several questions together within my own answer or sharing. Thank you very much for your thoughts and questions regarding child marriage. We have difficulties within Muslim community in Thailand as well when child marriage is a practice still as a kind of norms and culture that people are accepted. Of course, people see the challenging, but it's challenging in terms of bring back
those young mothers to go back to school and to have their own incomes. That's the problem when they got into that kind of environment. But at the same time, we, Muslim in Thailand, in some certain area, cannot find a solution. But there is another challenging when we talk about child marriage. Those who have capacity and power to talk on behalf of Islam, on behalf of our religion, they say that go back to the history of those ladies, Khadija, Fatima, and Aisha, which is bring some understanding regarding child marriage accepted within Islamic history, which is quite challenging to argue immediately because women in our society, I mean in Thailand, feel uncomfortable to talk on behalf of Islam because they know, they recognize themselves as people who have less knowledge on Islam, but actually they have the knowledge, but the capacity of them to immediately talk with reference is quite low in compare with men, friends, or the student who come from Pesantren, Pondok. So we need to encourage them to speak out with certain reference to understand there are some debates about the age, there are some debate about resources. The second point is that we can bring up the living reality, what I have mentioned before about it's difficult for women, young mother to go back to have education as the rights of them as well, and Islam emphasizes on that. Encourage every single people, regardless religion as well, including gender, to study, to learn. Because the first ayah is about Iqra, read, understand, right? So it doesn't mean you go to school at that kind of format, but you have to learn until you die. But there are so many, at the same time, there are so many hadith, as well encourage every single people to study. And number 3 would go back to what we kind of work in the structural frame. When we have CEDAW report, we know that this is one of the articles that highlights by different NGOs. We went, when I say we, which means that I and different other friends who concerned about injustice in different formats. So we talk about accessibility to education and child marriage. We wrote one in our report, CEDAW Shadow Report. CEDAW is one of the convention that every state who rectify this kind of convention need to report back to the UN CEDAW committee. And then that article was specified in Article 16, we say that we found cases of child marriage, which is against civil law. And in certain area, when we adopt Muslim family law, it is allowed by norms and culture. So it comes into the debate when there was a case of 11-year-old girl who married as the third wife of a Malaysian man. And it becomes a big issue about 4 years ago, before COVID. And some of us who came here in this forum also fight, which means that we say that it is a normal, is it unnormal? And so we wrote in the CEDAW report to tackle the norms, and then we need so many other dialogues. The second issue that I can answer by short about how to transfer the movement or the sentiment of being activists or people who want to promote human rights, gender within Islamic perspective to young generation. We are doing, and in our platform, so many friends from southern Thailand, including other parts, participate. You can have dialogue with them. And they have fascinated programs to transfer the knowledge and action, including bring different other values who have the common ground within Islamic interpretation, Islamic value, to work together. So we need to learn from you as well, sisters, from Aceh. We have so many common historical and cultural background. So I think after our meeting here, we can keep contact and we can learn from all of you, especially friends and sister brothers in Aceh.
Thanks, Doc Amporn. Ruby, perhaps you could respond to the questions by the two ladies. One on the fear of recurrence of the violence in Aceh, and the second one is the question raised by the gentleman, what is the policy of Indonesia? If 50% of the population is women, how do you encourage political participation of women in Indonesia?
Okay. Actually, I want to because there is a very unique and the development of Indonesia when the birth of Indonesia Women Ulama Congress. I don't have a strong Islamic studies background, but I am the person that learning on that. And also joining with the group where a person like Kiai Fakih here and Ibu Norofia and many more, always feeding and providing a lot of, how do you call it, a tough challenge on reading our Islamic texts. I think what is the interesting, the way of the women ulama putting the narrative. In many cases, when we work with the women rights, and when stagnation happen at the policy level, somehow it is about narrative. The narrative is very powerful. Why we need to work with the narrative? One is because that can to shift people's mind and heart. I tell you, one of the narrative that created by KUPI is the preventing child marriage. When the narrative on preventing child marriage, a few in the methodology of Islamic studies, I learned from the methodology Professor Husni here, is you actually guiding by the question. There are so many years we debate about whether this is allowed in Islam, halal or haram, is always controversial. But then Kubi introduced on, look at the voices of the women that experience child marriage, what happened to them. And then you will see that a lot of stories, not happy stories, to women, so that actually the ulama need to hear. And then instead of you debating all the time whether this is correct or not, whether this is Islamic or not, this is a law or not, because controversial is always bringing you in the division. But I think the offer from KUPI, when the question about the fatwa is, what is religious opinion about preventing child marriage? What is Islam says about preventing child marriage? And then you have to go to the reference that actually supporting the child marriage is not providing a betterment for the future of women in our society. Different when you ask question whether the child marriage is Islamic or not. You will go deeper on the controversial. Let me, in my very humble understanding about my religion, Islam is always tafsir or interpreted with the different views. And that is there. We need to recognize different views. But when you stand your position to the victim, that actually can give you more benefit in doing that. And not only that, I think the women ulama in Indonesia able to feeding the arena of advocacy that I don't see in other countries happening like that. During advocacy for the increasing marriage age from 16 to 19, I think huge of mobilization across the island, and then one big contribution is coming from the women ulama providing interpretation on the preventing child marriage. In order for what? To move our policymaker to think about it, not only just thinking about controversial thing, but looking at more benefit for the most vulnerable in our society. So political Politics is so much important, need to be intervened. Now, very sad to say that the quota in Indonesia is so low. We are still like 18%. We are not doing good comparing to Nepal. Nepal has a good system on the women participation, but we are still working on. I end my session today by saying that whatever the government exists, civil society never stop to monitor, to always be there, to speak, to negotiate, to advocate, whatever we are, have to be there. Because with that kind of process, you will allowing you to actually engage different actors, including religious actors. Because religious actors not only just providing fatwa or religious opinion over something, but they are everywhere. They are also in the structure. They need to be also engaged when we do advocacy. Aceh, difficult. One is the big challenge after conflict is the losing term of conflict in the government nomenclature. Because everything now treated as a normal. Remember, I think although the Aceh Reconciliation Commission, not yet Truth and Reconciliation Commission, just released part of the report on the human rights violation, including they released report on the 129 victim of sexual violence during the conflict. Doesn't mean that tackle nicely or comprehensively. There are still, again, negotiation. Balai Shura and other network that working with us in Aceh still negotiating and ensuring that this agenda is included under the local action plan that Aceh just released, I think last year or 2 years, to the implementation of women, peace and security. And we need to work on that. The good news, I want to bring you into good news too. Philanthropy organization is the new institution that actually filling the gap in Aceh. They are stand up and also helping a lot with the victim of sexual violence during the conflict and building the house, providing economic empowerment and most of the work. So you will see that a lot of actors doing. Oh, again, there is an Umi Hanisa here. Umi, can you rise up? I want to promote you too. She's working in handling, providing shelter in her pesantren, Islamic boarding school for the victim and survivor of sexual violence during the conflict, including the children that born from that incident. So a person like Umi Haniza everywhere, but government need to be responsible too. Thank you so much.
Sadly, we're running out of time. Do we still have Mavic? Is Mavic still on? If not, can we get your concluding statements, Doc Amporn?
Okay, actually I learned a lot from your question and the sharings from friends here, and not only from the forums, but also from what we learned when I conducted research 60 years ago here in Aceh. I see some so familiar faces who are coming here, and I also travel around the city. I see things change a lot. This is a time that I, again, and friends from Southern Thailand would come back and see how we can learn from Aceh. Either that kind of successfulness or that's kind of challenging that you are facing right now, because the issues of Sharia is quite highlighted in Southern Thailand. And this, right after this section, we have special section for Thai delegates who are going to share the experience working in Southern Thailand specifically. So please join the section that we provided. And we are very keen to learn from not only Acehnese, but also friends from different other places. Thank you very much.
Ruby?
I do believe that the more you work with the grassroots, you will have a hope. because in this more, I think 20 years I'm working in this issue, when you feel that it's difficult to challenge the global structure or the national level, whatever the government side, I think you have to invest in really nurturing the people and work directly with the people. You can see that the change is real. I witnessed in the 20 years of my career in the women, peace and security, and feel that that's the only that actually feeding me the energy on working in this field. Somebody asking me, are you not tired? I am not tired. I am so much energized with a lot of stories of change that happen in the different countries that you bring here, and let's inspire one together. I'm very sad. I just received a news that Rohingya new wave coming to Aceh, and I hope with the Islamic Sharia law that you have a heart to accept the people, and let's work together how we can work together. We have a huge resources in the country that also running by some Islamic philanthropic in Indonesia, and they are also very welcome to work with the Rohingya. We did several forums in Jakarta to help Rohingya by advocacy and matchmaking with different actors. Several advocates from Rohingya side came to Jakarta, I think 3 times. And then we facilitate meeting with the government, one side, with the ASEAN, another side, but the other side, I think, bring them into one forum with humanitarian agency. We have here human initiative, thank you so much, Dompet Duafa, Lazismu, and many more. They are great. We need to work with them, bring them in sensitive in addressing women, peace and security, and fund it. I mean, give the money for the work of women, peace and security and support. Thank you. And also thank you for the support from Human Initiative and Dompet Duafa for this event.
How time flies when we're having fun. With that, we draw a conclusion to this morning's session. A round of applause for our energetic and vibrant discussants, Dr. Mavic, Doc Amporn, and Secretary General Ruby. Thank you, audience, for listening. I really hope that you got some tips from what our discussants have shared. Good morning to all of you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Salma Pirti Rasul for moderating the session. And also thank you to all of the experts for giving us so many insight about women, peace and security in Muslim world, new development and challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to the next session, the delivering of token appreciation, which will be handed by Professor Yusni Sabi, MA, PhD, as a professor of Ar-Raniry State Islamic University. We are pleased to invite all of the speakers and moderators to join us in the main stage. Please give a round of applause to all of our speakers and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are in the end of plenary 3 session. Before that, we're going to show you the separation of parallel workshop that you may find the lesson officer in the exit door to guide and assist you to go to the parallel room. You might find your group, and then you may also find the lesson officer there. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I inform once again, you may go to your parallel session right now, and you can meet your lesson officer in the exit door and find that will assist and guide you to find your parallel rooms.
To create a space for the exchange of ideas among Muslims and people of other faiths and beliefs, 500 individuals from 20 countries have gathered in Aceh over the course of 2 days at the Auditorium Ali Hashimi of the State Islamic University, UIN, Ar-Raniry, from October 14th to 17th, 2023. Representatives from around the world have come together. These representatives hail from Afghanistan, Australia, Bangladesh, Burundi, India, Indonesia, Iran, Kenya, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Thailand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Aceh is no longer defined solely by disasters and conflicts. Since the Helsinki Peace Agreement, Aceh has experienced rapid development. Religious inclusion is a shared mission. This international conference discusses and analyzes the state of international religious freedom and inclusion in Asia as a means to understand the achievements of the Muslim community in promoting religious freedom, tolerance, and peace, including support for women's leadership in peace building. There will be specific discussions on women, peace, and security by worldwide Muslim leaders. Prominent peace activists are also in attendance, such as Kutub Jahan Kidwai, Venerable Napan, Ihsan Ali Fauzi, and Hamsatu Alamin, who have received prestigious awards. Together, we are moving toward a more inclusive and peaceful world. International Conference and AMAN Assembly, Religious Inclusion and Peace Building in the World, The Perspectives of Muslims, October 14 to 17, 2023. In order to create a space for the exchange of ideas among Muslims and people of other faiths and beliefs, 500 individuals from 20 countries have gathered in Aceh over the course of 2 days at the Auditorium Ali Hashimi of the State Islamic University, UIN, Ar-Raniry, from October 14th to 17th, 2023. Representatives from around the world have come together.